have gathered here. I did not explain the reason. So today we are celebrating yet another distinguished Bush member under the banner of Behind the Byline. And today we have amongst us veteran journalist and firebrand journalist. You know how we know Ma'am Devika Sequeira. She is with us. And before I comment anything more, I would like to thank Devika Ma'am for accepting our invitation to be part of this Behind the Byline. In fact, we wanted to feature Ma'am, I think in the month of January, I think. But Ma'am was kind enough, not to decline our, invitation. In fact, she had some medical emergency, so she only, suggested us that this be, postponed by a few months. And thanks to Ma'am, today we are all here, we are going to witness a really wonderful session. And never to forget our moderator for today's session, again a vibrant journalist. He has worked in various capacities, right from a reporter to, I did not, Marcus will explain to you all in detail. He will introduce both our guests. And he has been president of this Go-In-Of Journalists on 2 occasions, in 2004, 5 and 5 and 6. Earlier the term was, just for 1 year. So now we have 2-year term. So actually, thank you very much for again, accepting our invitation to moderate this session. Well, for those who are coming for the first time, who are attending first time Behind the Byline, I'll just explain to you the brief concept behind the Byline. Well, as you all know, this Go-In-Of Journalists was established way back in 1978, and we had very few handful members, and now the number has crossed 400. And there's a big, vacuum in between the old and the new. I must not say old, like the seniors and the juniors. I think that sounds better. So there's a lot of vacuum. There's no interaction. They don't know each other basically. So the seniors doesn't know juniors and vice versa. And unfortunately, we don't have many, juniors attending this session. We have few faces here, but still they are not that junior also. Like we have Nigel here, Flavio is there. So anyway, so it's a matter of concern for us and for them also. Like whoever is attending, it's they are benefiting basically. So Behind the Byline, as the name suggests, this is a very unique concept that the Guj Executive Committee came out last year. So we started this series in June last year, and this is the 13th session. So basically, as you can read, the initiative of Go-In-Of Journalists to celebrate the life and work of distinguished Guj members. So basically, this is a interface, a platform to encourage and get encouraged. Like it's up to us, even seniors for that matter can get themselves encouraged. From whatever stories we are going to hear. And we've been listening, this is the 13th thing, and I personally have benefited a lot. Meaning, I thought I knew, many things, but I was wrong in so many aspects. So I won't waste much time. I would like to, call upon our Guj member, Dolce, okay, before that, Vasudev is not here. I may request Amresh to kindly escort our own guest.
Escort?
No, it's a protocol that we follow. Please. Sit here. So I request Guj member Dolce to kindly welcome our guest, Devika of class.
Finally, I met Tulsi in real. I meet her after every day.
Thank you, Tulsi. May I now request our Guj Executive Committee member and sports editor of the Times of India, Marcus Mergulam, to kindly introduce our guest.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks to Raj for giving me the opportunity to welcome two very senior journalists who I've admired for a very, very long time. I mean, before the session started, I was just telling Madam Devika about how I first noticed the byline when I was growing up and reading Herald newspaper, because Herald was the first newspaper that I started reading. Now I read newspapers. And Devika Sequeira was the byline that first registered with me. Because I used to get fascinated about how she used to come up with, particularly I remember some crime stories. And and it was pleasing to me to know that I always thought that you started your career with Herald as the chief reporter. But then when I learned more, Devika ma'am first started her career with Indian Express as a reporter, and then when Herald was launched in 1983, she joined the Herald as the chief reporter. I mean, almost all of us have gathered here because we've read whatever Madam Devika has written, and some of her work has been very, very inspiring, whether it's environment, whether it's politics, and largely especially stories about investigative reporting. I mean, the stories have been really, really outstanding. After a stint with the Herald, Devika ma'am also worked with the Deccan Herald. We still read her copies in the Wire as an independent journalist. Still today, her reports, her style of writing, the presentation of facts, it's almost every time a complete story. Me and my close friends, we always discuss Devika ma'am's stories, and we never find a single hole in the copy. I mean, it's a complete story. Any young journalist who wants to learn something have to read the reports and know how a report has to be presented. Even now, even after so many years, we feel that sometimes motivation is a problem sometimes, because you've worked for so many decades. But still, even if you read the last report, you learn what is reporting, how a report has to be presented. Welcome to Behind the Byline series. We are really, really fortunate to have you. I've interacted with you before. I've texted and spoken to you before, but this is the first time that I'll hear you live. So big pleasure.
Thanks.
Ashley,
Don't call me ma'am.
Ashley has been a dear friend, someone that I greatly admire, not just for his friendship with me, but because of the work that he has done. Ashley is one of the rare journalists who has worked with all local newspapers, Naveen Times, Herald, Gomantak Times, and now the Goan. He has also worked with television. He has also dabbled into politics. He has also managed a nightclub. He's done almost everything. Plus, my connect with Ashley is because he's been a great basketball player. I studied in Don Bosco, so I grew up watching Ashley.
Yeah, we had to pull Ashley out of his basketball game when he was a reporter and get him.
So Ashley is someone that I greatly admired all my years, because I worked with him in Herald, so I know the way he works. I know how he approaches work. One thing that has always stuck with me is that his political judgments I've always respected. I remember the 2002 election when Mickey Pacheco, and this is a story that I tell everyone. Mickey Pacheco up against Churchill Alamo, and everybody thought, Mickey is this young, fresh guy, he's got no chance. But I remember actually coming back on the day of the election and telling us, Mickey has won this hands down, and nobody believed him. And Mickey actually won. So that is his political acumen that I've always respected. Plus someone who has done everything, plus someone who has always stood for something that is right. So among the few guys in Goan journalism that I admire, Ashley is here. I mean, Vijay had just come in. Fortunate to work with this guy. That's all from my side as far as the introduction is concerned. I am sure that we are all waiting for to hear more. Over to you all. Thanks very much.
Should I use the mic or should no, without mic? Without mic.
Yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
Because with mic it becomes a bit formal. Okay, so first of all, it's very humbling for me to be here besides Devika doing this conversation with her. For the simple reason that although her family home and my family home is just 150 meters apart, we never knew each other before we got into journalism.
You were so much younger.
Yeah. So I also was an avid newspaper reader as a student, as a child. And as Marcus said, I also read a lot of Devika Sequeira and Norman Dantas and journalists like Rico didn't write much in the Herald because Rico was a test name at that point of time. So these were the bylines that we read in the Herald in those days. Of course, before the Herald, there was the Navin Time, which was dominating Goa, which had a monopoly over Goa, which had no competition at all.
Yeah.
And every home that was a bit of English speaking had Navin Times in their homes in those days. But Herald was a breath of fresh air, for sure, for us as readers at that point of time, because a lot of local news used to get covered in the Herald, which Navin Times rarely had. So when I actually became a journalist myself by accident, for the first couple of years I didn't interact much with Devika, but I held her in awe for the past when I read her bylines for all those reasons. And she used to make fleeting visits to the press room at the old secretariat in those days. And we used to be hanging around in the press rooms morning to evening. And then we actually crossed paths in the Herald when
When I joined
when
the
she
second
rejoined Herald in the second stint as deputy editor in the 90s. So let's keep that short and start off straight away with Devika's tryst with journalism. So Devika had a small request with me to start directly from her stint in the Herald when Herald was launched in 1983. So Devika, cutting short all the cliched, thought processes of you being the first women journalist in Goa or whatever. How was it like in the newsroom of Herald when it first started?
Yeah, you know what? I started first at the Express. In those days it was letterpress, and there I think was a lot of learning in the end. Yeah. Now we are used to all this, computerized everything. But if you really needed to learn journalism, those were the days. You start right there with the letterpress, the newsroom, everything you had to learn. As a reporter, of course, you could only take a bus. A taxi was very rare, so you had to really trudge the pavements to get somewhere, to go to a press conference. And you won't believe it, when I started, I didn't know how to type. So I had to go for typing classes, and we had to use a typewriter. And then, of course, you gave your thing, and some guy would key it in. Compose it, and then it would go to the compositor, and then we had to actually direct the page making downstairs in the press, heavy duty press. So the Indian Express taught me a lot. It taught me about typefaces, typesets, and you really had to know it because you had to choose the size of the type. 14 point will fit in 2 columns, 18 point fits in 3 columns. Does it go in Roman? Does it go in italics? It gives you a lot of. Then the copy also, we had a chief reporter half the day. He was actually Moraji Desai's nephew. His name was Manu Desai. He was very, very amusing. He'd spend half his day sleeping on mountains of newspapers because the pressure was always at night. So he'd come in the office and he'd be fast asleep and he'd dish out, you go for this press conference. So the first press conference I attended, I remember very clearly, he was, the guy who left the Congress from Kashmir. He was the Youth Congress president at the time.
The Raja?
No. Ghulam Nabi Azad. That's the very first press conference I had to attend. I had to come back and then I had to file my report. And it had a format. You had to start this way. So and so said this on Tuesday at so and so place. That was the beginning. So you're trained to do that, and then it stays in your brain, and years later I was saying that this formatting thing is really a problem. You have to get out of it. Then you have to knock it off. Anyway, so in '83 when Herald decided to change the avatar from Portuguese to English, I came. I was in Goa, and Raul came to my house with somebody. Apparently he had gone to Bombay to look for staff, and he met Frank Simoes, and Frank Simoes said, "Why have you come here? Devika is back in Goa, why don't you ask her?" So he came, and then we did a kind of rough draft of the newspaper. He printed it, he had got some new machinery. He was very pleased with it. Then he said, "What kind of position would you like?" I said, "I want to be chief reporter." He was quite taken aback. Woman chief reporter? Then, because before I went to Bombay, I tried for a job at Navin Times, and I got a reply back from them. I said, "I've got an MA in English, whatever, literature, blah, 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 and I'd like to work in a newspaper." And I got a letter back from the management saying that, "Sorry, we don't employ women." Anyway, so a few months later, there was this ad in the Express, and I moved to Bombay.
Yeah. So
Then we started the whole Herald experience in 1983. What was in Herald's advantage was the Commonwealth Summit, the
84 Commonwealth Summit.
yeah, the Commonwealth Chogam meeting. It was not the actual meeting, it was the retreat. It happened in Goa. So that gave us a real boost, and we were all over the place. They had a jeep, and we were taking that jeep everywhere. We were there in the Taj, so we had photographs. I had Louis Godino, who now writes for the Goan from the UK.
From the UK.
Yeah, so Louis was with me. We managed to go to the, to where the helicopter was landing. They made that helipad.
Up on.
Yeah, we
up
got
on the hill.
photographs of that. So we had photographs on the front page. The next day there was chaos. The security came down heavily on us. "How did you manage to get there?" We said we never went there. We just went to the church turret, and Louis took the pictures from the church. There was a church next door. He just climbed up the turret and he took photographs of people landing and coming into Taj. And then we asked the Taj people how many rooms are there. They also got into a lot of trouble for telling us how many rooms were there, how many people. You see, they'd never seen reporters before coming and asking, so they were quite naive about it, talking so freely to us. So that was one thing that really, that coverage of the Commonwealth Summit. Rico was there. You were on the desk, I think, no, Rico? That coverage gave Herald quite a boost. After that, it went on.
One striking story in those days, I think I was in the 9th standard. In the Herald was the coverage of the double murder in Veli. The Veli double murder case. Could you, if I'm not mistaken, you were the reporter who reported extensively on that story.
Yeah.
Could you explain to us your experience?
Yeah,
For
actually.
example, right from the physical work, going by bus to Veli, and because in those days there were no mobiles, there was nothing.
Yeah, there was nothing.
No
Absolutely.
way of contacting anybody.
Actually, I didn't take a bus. Like I said, Herald had a jeep, and they were quite free in the way I used that jeep. So I knew there was one person who had been hurt. Those two women were dead, but their nephew had been hurt. So I went to GMC, and he was in bed. And I asked him what happened, and he's the guy who told me what happened. Otherwise, I would have never got the story. He gave me the full lowdown on how they were, they came out, and then they were shouting. Actually, there were two women whom apparently the whole village disliked.
Didn't like him.
Yeah, everyone disliked them. They were always fighting with everybody, and on that day, for some reason, they were having a fight on the road. So the cops were called in, and the cops came, and then everything turned very physical and all that, and they were battered to death right there. This boy also got quite a beating, but they didn't kill him. Now the cops and there was an MLA, the local MLA, they were present during that thing. I think some of them were beaten also by the cops. So once that story came out, it became a big deal. Then, there was a lot of investigation. There was a CBI was called in. A lot of the cops were suspended. And I think that also gave Herald this little bit of investigative reporting tag, which they had never heard of before in Goa, because all the newspapers were, even the Marathi papers, the vernacular papers, were all controlled by the mine owners. This was the only non-mine owner owned newspaper. And I think once I asked, when we were talking, Pamela once mentioned to me, said, one thing about a Herald is it's a functioning anarchy. It is the most anarchic paper you could work in. But I think in a way it also sort of helped young reporters. It gave you a sense of loyalty, because the newspaper was trying to make a niche for itself, and everybody was proud of the work they were doing. So
yeah, I can second that, because my baptism in journalism was also Herald. So also in a very chaotic time when a whole bunch of seniors had quit. So although I was a trainee reporter, I was just thrown into the swimming pool of journalism and said, start swimming from day one. And I didn't know how to write a report, but I managed through it.
yeah.
So this thing of it being a functional anarchy is the apt description of what the newsroom in the Herald is.
Yeah. It's that, and it's also quite exciting, I think, because it's buzzing. The other thing I remember, if you recall, Ashley, I think I think was it one of those agitations, Konkani agitations or something?
I was not in the Konkani agitation.
Okay.
The Konkani agitation was way before my time.
Okay, there also we had...
yeah, Konkani agitation was another time when the Herald made its mark.
Yeah. We had a tough time getting across because Churchill and all had cut the roads, and there was no way. Nobody would take us. Nobody would take you. So I put a reporter in the police jeep, and he managed to get across, and he wrote one of the finest reports. He just went with the cops. I phoned the cop I knew, and I said, just take my reporter in your jeep. He said, yes, just push him in the back. And they took him all the way there, and he got everything. He got the pictures, he got everything. Of course, in those days, you couldn't send the pictures. You had to actually come,
and then develop it.
Go to Hollywood studio, develop it, and all that.
Hollywood or Acharya.
Yeah, whichever. That was one case. The other one, I think, was it, I don't know if Rico remembers, was it when the bridge fell?
Madhavi Bridge. 86.
86, no, it wasn't that year. There was another incident where we coordinated really well with the desk. I think you were there, Ashley. And the reporter...
I think it was like chaos in the assembly.
No, he was filing the story from Margao. I told him, don't come back. Give it on the phone to Alaric.
Yeah.
Give it to Rico.
This was, I remember this one.
Give it to Rico.
Yes.
So Rico was on the desk, and he was the fastest typist you could find. He kept the whole report in. So, these were the many ways of getting through in those days.
Devika, you've been a journalist for 40 years. Obviously, the way a reporter functioned changed in those 40 years. Could you give us a lowdown on how reporting in the 80s was different from the reporting in the 90s and now?
One is technology. You see, there was so many challenges to reporting in those days. Like when I was in Deccan Herald, I had to cover elections, partly Maharashtra, partly Karnataka. There were times when I couldn't find a fax machine anywhere. I was in a taxi and I had to travel miles and miles looking for a fax machine. It was then you type I had a computer, but there was no Wi-Fi or anything, so I couldn't send my report. I had to type it. And on another occasion, I had no paper, so I saw this Tarun Bharat van. This was somewhere in Karnataka. They were campaigning heavily for the BJP. Anyway, I stopped them and I said, "Do you have some paper?" And they gave me piles of their posters, vote for something. So I turned the back and I wrote my full report and I faxed it to Deccan Herald from, I don't know where, Ichal Karanji or somewhere, some strange place in Maharashtra.
Okay. Apart from the physical difficulties faced, some of the most difficult challenges for reporters is to handle pressure. And especially in a place like Goa, which is so small,
Yeah.
So somebody that you are reporting about could be somebody's friend who will come and, put pressure.
I
so-
felt that pressure more
Yeah.
recently, not in those days. More recently, my last stint with the Herald, when I was doing Herald Review, I had a story on that big shot lawyer. I had the full thing on how many trips he made at government cost to go to Bombay for whatever. And then I got a call, of course, don't let Devika's story go in. And the guy at the desk told me, don't bother because he's not going to let us use it. So I had to just kill the story. But there were times, of course, but I think also in some ways, I don't know, maybe there are more pressures now than there were then in those days.
Yeah, more pressures now because
Now,
journalism is getting to, very dangerously close to stenography now.
Yeah, it
that's,
is
the,
so.
that's the problem.
yeah.
You do a bit of an out of the way story and it, 99 out of 100 times there will be somebody calling in to block it.
Yeah, that's true.
And you would not even know, somebody calling in at a higher level.
Yeah, that's what's
To block it,
happening
yeah.
with legacy media, the print media, but it is not so with websites, news websites and all, which are they just love the big story. They just love, and that is where you have to go nowadays to get the real story.
Stories, yeah.
You don't get it in the
You don't get it
newspapers.
in the-
Now
in the mainstream
either they are
newspapers,
complicit with the government and they only give the government point of view.
Devika, one example in your long career of backlash from the bureaucracy or from the state, if you could.
Well, I don't recall having any such backlash. I mean, maybe I was lucky, maybe for whatever reason. But I don't really. But I've had backlashes on the street. That much you can say. Konkani agitation was one of them, where my friend was attacked, but that was because he was writing this pro-Marathi stories. So this whole load of Konkani agitators came at him and pushed him, and they were going to hammer him, and I had to stop them. It happened not once, it happened another time when we were in Benauli and they started banging on the taxi, they surrounded our taxi, and then we could see Churchill, huge form looming over the taxi. What are you writing? This, that, the other. And so the minute I got out, he said, "Oh, Devika, how are you?" and all. Then he went off, but he let the other guy go. Yes, so, in a way, no, I haven't faced any backlash as such. But there were times when, of course, they would phone and say, I got it once in Deccan Herald. When I think Parikar phoned them, I'm told, and but they ignored it. They didn't take it seriously. Why is your correspondent only attacking me and all that? He said to them. So he made a complaint to them, and he fired their advertising guy who went to there to get some government ads. So that was that.
One major complaint from people that I know in this profession is that there is very little time for life beyond journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, your family life gets affected, your social life gets affected. how much did this pressure get to you during your career?
It does and it doesn't, in a way that you are doing a job that you like. But if I were to take a job, I was offered many other jobs. Reuters offered me a position in Hong Kong. I didn't take it because my kids were too small. It would have been too tough. That would have been a complete, giving up on everything else. So you have to make that choice between, your family and the job you're taking.
Especially if you're a reporter.
Yeah,
Especially if you're a reporter. There are times that beyond your duty hours, you
Yeah.
have to come in. So, your family life gets affected.
Yeah, that is an absolute fact.
That's the point I was trying to.
Yeah, but
keep
I
in.
know exactly what you mean. But I did at one point leave. I left Deccan Herald and I took up a job in some NGO. They gave me a higher salary and everything. I didn't last even 1 month. I got utterly bored. And I said, what am I doing here? Don't you have any work? I'm just sitting at a desk. And they said the work will come when the work comes and all that. But then I realized that, then I said, how do you know that you're actually doing good work? I said, it's different in a newspaper. You're only as good as your next story. Especially if you're a reporter, you're only as good as your next story. You're forgotten from your yesterday's story or today's story is forgotten in a while. So you are constantly proving yourself, and that challenge is what makes you tick. It really makes you tick. There's nothing like a newsroom to make you tick. I had a guy who came when we were in Herald. He came from Bangalore. He wanted a job. He got the job. His English was good, etc. In like a week, he said, I can't take the pressure. I'm going, nothing. I mean, he just couldn't take the pressure. He went off. So it takes a certain type, I think, to be a journalist. There's one more thing I wanted to mention is, this whole thing we have of you're a reporter, then you want a more senior position. You want to be a senior correspondent, a senior journalist. But I think there's a certain weight that goes with being a reporter. I was just talking about Philip Knightley. He wrote a lot of books on the Kim Philby case, the spy thing. Till the end, he called himself a reporter, and he was very proud of it. And even when I read his obituary, he died about, I think, 6 years ago. They said that he was one of the finest reporters of his generation. So what I'm saying is, being a reporter should carry some weightage. Not, you shouldn't disparage that term. It shouldn't be seen as you haven't moved in your profession. I think it's a very good this to have, the thing of being called a reporter. And
even on the street, it gives you some sort of a standing.
Yeah, you call a police station and he doesn't understand. You say Patrakar and he understands
everything.
Or you say reporter and you say correspondent, he doesn't know what you're talking about. That word just opens doors. I went to a place called Majali. There was this smuggling case I was following on. So I went all the way to Majali because the smugglers had gone in hiding there. And when I reached the border, the guy said, where are you going? What are you doing? I said, we are reporters. Oh, he said, he just let us in. And we crossed that border and then we went to the police station and to get all the details. And that guy was so happy to see journalists there. This is the thing, in those early days, journalists were not swimming around like they are now. They're a dime a dozen. They're pushing the mic in your face. Anyone can, like Manoj says, anyone can be a journalist. All they do is carry a mic and push it in your face.
And
it's not the same.
You don't even need a camera. You need your mobile.
Yeah, it's not the same. It was completely different. You really had to travel places, get through so many this to get somewhere. So, there were so many obstacles, but the excitement was great.
Devika, any one controversial story that you did that, I'm repeating this question because I know you did face a backlash in one particular story. I think it was in the Goa Today. Could you explain it to us?
Which story was that?
The Marriott song.
Marriott story, yeah. No, Marriott story was okay. I mean, it had nothing to do with the owners. So I don't think the Marriott story and the backlash I faced was the story about Herald trying to sell itself to, in the Wire, trying to sell itself to TMC. That story got me a load. I mean, it really traveled. That was one story, and the second one is that one on Old Goa and that bungalow. That also traveled a lot.
NC China's bungalow.
Yeah, the Herald story got me nuked in the Herald. Totally. I've become a persona non grata. I cannot write even a column there. I mean, I haven't tried, but I was told that don't try. So that is what it is. I mean, newspapers can't take newspaper owners can't take criticism about their own shutting the doors to everything else. But basically,
any story where you remember being shouted at or something of that sort by politicians?
Politicians shouting? No, I don't think so. Just once, Rani met me on the corridor and he might have said something. Another time, Parikar met me and he said, "You're writing all this. Do you know what it is like to be a chief minister? Do you know? You're talking of." It was some story about some lakhs or something. You're talking about lakhs. Do you know the power of a chief minister? Crores and crores. He said, "I'm not going to do this for a few lakhs." He was furious, fuming in the corridor of that new secretariat. I don't remember what story it was, but many times they used to confront you like that. But generally they couldn't nudge you. Most of the confrontation came, by the way, in the BJP, not in the Congress time. Though, according to Vishwajit, I hammered his father more than anybody else.
Okay, I have exhausted all my thoughts. I will throw the floor open to people in the audience. If you all want to ask Devika anything, please go ahead. Gauri is with the Times of India.
Gauri does some good stories.
She specializes in education mostly, and now in environmental.
I've forgotten the question. After Devika's name. Because I stood up to say I really admire, your style of writing, and I want to know, it's really easy to read. Like sometimes even long pieces, you reach the end of it and you don't feel like you don't know when you reach the end. So is there where do you
that's
pick it
the
up?
thing. The thing is, local newspapers don't have training programs for staff for writing. So you have to read a lot. The thing is, because I married my husband, I was open to a lot of literature, though I used to read a lot even before. But when I went to Bombay, I felt like a fish out of water with the other staff because they were really well read. Even though, I went to a good boarding school, etc., etc. I think the college time in Goa is when there isn't enough, of reading and all that. People who are from Bombay, Delhi, they're much, much better read than us. They have, so that gives you a depth and understanding of other things. The more you read, the better it is. And I've read a lot. I'm talking of books, this, that. Also, I would always read, say, the BBC, CNN, Guardian, whatever, and look at their style of writing. They've simplified a lot of things. We use too much to say a simple thing. We use too many words. You can make it much shorter, much more, compact, and say the same thing. Use easier words, easier language rather than more complex language. So the simplification and just to get the things across in a much better way. The more you read, the better it is. That's the only thing I can say. It's something we should teach our children. Read books, read whatever. Read newspapers, read this, that. And People should read more, yeah.
Because, I mean, you've been a reporter, you've been a chief reporter as well, then you edited the magazine, Herald Review.
Yeah.
All this needs different approaches.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel we don't have good enough writers, not quality writing. With review, we saw you, if not writing, at least reading, you had a team who could deliver, long form features, interesting features.
Yeah.
You get a sense that we don't do enough good features now.
Yeah, we don't. One thing is having very good editors. By editors I mean subs. People who can actually sub copy and straighten it out. Because I used to do a lot of rewrite in Herald Review. Some of those young women, by the way, it took a lot of, all the staff was women. There wasn't even one man, but that was not out of choice, because the women were smarter, the ones who came to the interviews. And I used to do a lot of rewrite of their stuff. And the other thing I've noticed is the idea, you see. An editor should have ideas. An editor should have ideas for stories and also for the angle you take in the story. Two people can be sitting and talking to one guy who's telling you something. Like once I went to interview Velinka, the RSS guy. He didn't look at me even once. He spoke. There were two of us, two reporters. But he said something interesting, and he said the RSS doesn't exist in Goa anymore, because I've taken also, I did that story and it got a big play in the Wire, and the other person who was with me said, why didn't you tell me that angle? I said, but you should have got that angle, you see. Just that one statement was enough to say that the RSS doesn't exist. He's taken everybody off. So I got a big story there, just from that. Another story was when the vice president came and they feted a lot of people. Goa, it was all the freedom fighters. They brought them all from outside Goa, Rajasthan, this, that. Everybody wrote the same report. They gave the vice president's speech, and that was their report. But I did a report for Deccan Herald which said that not a single Goan freedom fighter attended. They all boycotted. Nobody had even got that angle. You see, so that gave it punch. And same thing when there was that air crash, the two Indian Navy planes crashed. Yeah. I just went for the funeral, and there one of the naval, I don't know if he was an admiral, he was just casually standing next to me, and I asked him what happened, and he said to me that our whole fleet is wiped out. These were the last two, so that gave me another very big story. So it's just this random thing where you are in the right place at the right time, but you pick up the story, but you also get the angle. That angle is very important in filing a report. And you put it out there in the first paragraph. Don't bury it, because otherwise it won't get any play. So put it right there. The main angle should come right on top.
Yeah. Hola.
Devika, it's nice hearing you. What do you think of pay dues and the contract system of journalists?
Yeah.
And according to which is the media house which originated all this, and your comment that the fourth estate has become a real estate. So, your comments on these two. Paid news, contract system, contract.
Paid news.
Permanent journalist.
Yeah, I know.
What do you think about that? Does it inhibit freedom of the press? It's just a joke now.
It's not. Paid news has become a real challenge during the elections in Goa. You don't know what is fake, what is real. It's just they're taking money to just put out a whole report on some guy who's standing for elections, and if you talk to them, they'll tell you I paid 60,000 for that 4-column report. Somebody else said I met Babush on the road during the elections. So I said, whom did you pay the most to? I thought he was going to say whichever. And he said, Gomantak. I was so surprised. He said, Gomantak. I said, okay, maybe because, but why does Babush need Gomantak? He's in a constituency that is, I don't know, whatever was his
No,
reason.
he was standing on a BJP ticket for the first time.
Not this time, it was last time. He was in Santa Cruz, he was standing near the church.
So Congress.
Yeah, on the other hand was that guy who was contesting his landscape.
Dinar Tarkar.
Dinar Tarkar.
Was
He-
the FGP candidate.
He was on the road on the other side, so I stopped him, I talked to him. He said, every single voter is asking me for money. Even this big house, they're asking me for money. And another time Narveka said something so funny. The voter has become more corrupt than the politician, he told me. I found that really hilarious. You know, the voter has become so corrupt. They won't vote for you unless you give them money. They've corrupted the system. What else can you say? Yeah, paid news, I suppose, started with, their page 3 stuff and all that.
Which media house has originated, conceptualized this. What's your opinion?
That I can't say, but everybody
No,
knows.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows, but Times started the page 3 rage. Whether they were taking money for it, one doesn't know. But I suppose they do. Like everybody else probably does the same thing now.
And contract system, I mean, you started that. and-
Contract
But
system.
Your job becomes statutory.
Yeah, but
You don't get
the
your
salary goes up. Yeah, you don't get a pension.
Your
But
salary goes up depending upon the evaluation of your immediate boss.
yeah,
There's a wage board, you get your
yeah.
promotion
The
or
wage board is still alive or it's dead? I
So-
don't even know.
It's virtually dead.
Yeah.
They've not had a wage board in the last 20 years. So
the new generation doesn't know what is a wage
they
board.
don't know what is the generation.
It's a vital difference.
Obviously.
Rico.
No, my point is we were discussing about the changes in the media.
Yeah.
So would you agree that the biggest change has been the corporatization of the media? And with that the stakes have gone very high.
Yeah,
Now we also have a stake in it in the sense that we get paid more,
yeah.
but the freedom gets less.
Yes, of course.
So that is part of the problem. The other thing that I see is this shift away from the desk to the field.
Yeah,
At one stage, to be on the desk, you have to be really good.
yeah.
You know, if you were on the field, it was okay. I'm not saying in your time, but even before that.
Now it is opposite.
Because but now everyone wants the glamour of the field.
Mm.
Bylines are there. People in journalism school don't want to go to newspapers because there's no glamour there. So I'm wondering what are the main changes of change? What are the main levers of change that
You're talking about legacy media where the corporatization has
Yeah.
taken place, but now that too is changing with everything going to the website. Newsbeat shut down years ago, then every other these major magazines have shut down. So I think if you want real journalism, I don't know. You had asked me to write something for that book, and I kept asking myself, what is journalism? I have no idea. There is. I mean, social media has virtually killed it. You can start your own little, podcast, blog, this, that, and put out a good story. That's a good thing, actually. But at the same time, you have, just about anybody's opinions. So, where is you don't get context, you don't get analysis, you don't get that. Unless you're a website run by journalists, like I'd say The Wire, News Minute, News Laundry. They do some solid stories, solid reporting, and they try to survive as best they can with donations. But how long is it going to last? They have no advertising at all. Because if you have, the minute you have advertising, then you have, those interests coming to control it. Now in Goa, the sad part is that right now, from what we see, the chief minister seems to have a control over so many newspapers. Whether we saw from that statement in the assembly, which had filed a report, how much he gives to every newspaper, even the most useless magazine that doesn't even come out once. He's getting such a big dole from the government. So obviously they're just going to project, the chief minister's point of view. The opposition is totally obliterated.
even the mainstream newspapers, almost 60-70% of their revenues is government.
But is it a new thing?
It is a new thing.
No.
At least it is a new thing.
But that
I mean,
is
the
that.
jump has happened after COVID.
This is
Huge jump in the share of government revenues to newspapers.
Well, that is in
from
Goa.
COVID. In Goa.
In
I'm
Goa.
talking about Goa.
But all India, I'm told BJP has withdrawn all the ads because they are so much in control of everything that they don't need to advertise anymore. So there's a report which says how much they've cut down all their advertising revenues to the media. Totally cut
But
down.
if it's true, it's unhealthy because you're dependent on one source,
Hmm?
and that source can determine which direction you go in.
You're talking of the Goa one.
Yeah. So where's the question of independence?
You can see what kind of ads Vishwajit puts out. His birthday, his wife's birthday, 3-4, and most of them are in the Marathi papers. Most of them huge ads.
But this argument that newspapers need these ads, to survive, I take it as a red herring because it's not need, it's greed. Most of the time it's greed. However much you get, no pot borana.
No, आणि कोणाक खबर ना तो पण बोलला काय बरोबर नाही. It is all secretive accounting. Where is the accounting? In any of the newspapers, nobody knows how much who is making how much profit.
See, it's a very complex situation because the media is morphing all the time. Even as we put our hands on it, it's changing further. Okay, now what we think as the mainstream or the corporate, whatever you call it, media, is not always been the norm. When Gandhi brought out newspapers, he didn't get government advertising. Okay, he didn't take all sides of the story. It was not news in the sense we understand news today. The purpose was very different. So it has morphed all along. It has morphed. I was reading the autobiography of K. Kiranga's father, Chalopati Rao. Fascinating. They were also very close to the government. I don't think that it's a new trend.
Yeah, they were close to the government in a different situation. No, they were looking at the freedom angle. So obviously they would be close to the government. There's no doubt about that. But
Maybe more
now it
ideological.
is different. Yeah, that was ideological. Now it's different. I mean, you don't know what you're reading is true or not. Is it just put out? Is it just cover up for? One doesn't know what's going on. Is anyone getting to the story? I don't know.
Which are the 3 or 5 best stories of all time which you remember? Yours.
My stories, it's a difficult one to say. I don't even know. Depends. Maybe Ashley mentioned the Veli murders.
Then there was another story.
I can tell you 2 or 3.
Yeah, you can.
One more is the Tucker one.
Tucker was one.
You remember those 2 Tucker brothers that were murdered in Dawarli?
Yeah.
Then the BBC story.
You
where
interviewed that
you
garage
quoted the BBC
garage
on
fellow.
Yeah.
the
Memo.
Golden Temple, rather than taking PTI, you and I, you
No.
reported on the BBC, and there was a huge outcry.
Yeah.
I think including from Shakti Sinha, who was some secretary that time.
Yeah, the story that stuck with me was what they call the Kurshorian riots. You remember? It was not communal riots, and I still say it was not communal because it was just one community totally attacking the other. So we went there. There were 4 of us. There was Prakash, Banerjee, and a young woman reporter. She was totally young and very scared. Anyway, we couldn't get a taxi, so we took Rajan's his van. He told me, take the van and go, whatever. I wasn't doing the story for him, of course, but we went. I was still in Deccan Herald. We went there, and there was complete silence. So we got out of near the railway station. We got out of the van. Suddenly, one guy came. What are you doing here? Women and all. So we said, and out of the blue, then 2 cop jeeps came, and this very hefty cop got out. He was he? He was not a constable. He was a PSI.
PSI.
Yeah, he got out he had a danda in his hand and all that. And suddenly a huge mob came. They came out of nowhere, and they grabbed his pistol. They beat him up. They threw stones at him. They grabbed his pistol and they ran. and he was lying there, all bleeding. And that young reporter went inside and she started crying. She was so scared. So then I called Ujjwal Mishra. He was the DIG. He was, of all the things, when this damn thing is going on, he's sitting in a movie house. This is how our cops work. Anyway, I could hear this loud Hindi music. Maybe he was at home listening to some Hindi music. And I said that, they've attacked your cop. He's lying on the street bleeding, and the other two jeeps just went off. They left him. So he must have phoned them. Then these guys came so scared. They got out of their thin, skinny Goan cops came. They pulled him along the road. They pushed him in the jeep and they took him away. Later on, that cop came to thank me after a month or so for saving his life. He would have died. And by the way, there were these guys in the railway station. They were railway police. One hefty, fat guy came out and he fired 2-3 rounds of this. He had a gun. That's how those guys ran off. And he helped to pull. He helped us, and we pulled the cop inside the railway station, and we kept him till these cops came to take him. But I'm just saying that was quite a scary situation. Then I met some. Parikar came there afterwards, and he made a speech. And in the background was Satish Dond. Yeah, he was there in the background. And Parikar said something, and they did a lot of this. Then we went inside, and this other cop was in front of that thing, for them not to come into the police station. They were getting all ready to go in and attack the police station. Then they all dispersed, but Satish Dond was very much there, and I was told that he was a lynchman behind all those riots. And I spoke to some priests, Catholic priests, who were not, they were the neutral
community.
Yeah, and they told me that in the night they saw these two big vans, trucks, mini trucks or whatever you call them, full of bricks. They were kept in the ready, and that's how the riots started.
So crime has fascinated you?
Absolutely. Crime reporting was really my beat, yeah.
Why?
I don't know why. Maybe the tick of it. The cops. I used to do the police station round almost every day. I knew every cop from top to bottom, down to the stories and the drug stories and all that.
The other story I remember was the smuggling of the statue.
Yeah, that was another one.
Where it was like a detective thriller, because every day you were breaking a new angle to it, and actually there was a statue antique being smuggled.
Yeah, it was being smuggled by the Chogles, by the.
Let me interrupt.
Sorry.
So Devika kept breaking the story bit by bit. So she said they are smuggling it. They said no, we are not smuggling it. It's a newly built statue. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Then the next day she would release something else, and they would release a statue, the newly built statue. Then, like a detective, she would go after them and say the old statue is 4 feet and the new statue is 6 feet, or something like that. Something.
Yeah.
So sorry for taking the line.
So what happened is it was Chogles they were trying to smuggle, and I got a call from the cops. A cop friend who called me and said that the statue it's an antique. It was bought they stole it from this church or whatever, and they're trying to smuggle it as a new statue. So of course I sent Parvez out. Parvez was a reporter with me, and he went, and I told him. He said no, it's done by Vaman Zor. Vaman Zor is a famous. He used to carve it, and they got Vaman Zor. And he said, of course I have carved this statue, it's not an antique, it's totally new. So the cops had kept that statue. It was, I think, on hold in Vasco. I sent Parvez there. I said, stand next to the statue, take a picture. The statue was just this much, and he was towering above that. And the statue that Vaman Zor had made was some 6 foot or 5 foot. So they were caught red-handed. And then they said, we are sorry, and we didn't know it was stolen from the church. We are returning it to this church. They returned it to the church.
No, but above all, I think your point is, in that time there was a lot of this going on in Herald. Be skeptical of the authorities.
Yes.
Don't take their version as a gospel truth. In fact,
Yeah.
if they tell you something, presume that they are telling you a lie.
Yeah.
Presume that they are telling you a lie. Whereas that today has changed.
Yeah.
We take their version as a gospel truth.
Yeah.
And then we are left with all kinds of strange situations. Like, how do you explain? It's obviously not matching. But
Another time I got a story from a judge who called me anonymously that you remember Dilkush Desai?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
beaten
Shot,
up
yeah.
and
Shot.
shot and whatnot.
This was on your anniversary day.
Anniversary.
Herald
Yeah.
anniversary day.
Yeah, that was a judge, a junior judge who phoned me, said I can't give you my name, etc., etc. But he was based in Kepe and he gave me that story on the phone and I had to trust him. And
a lot
five
of people used to give tips in those
Yes,
days.
they used to phone in.
If they
and
know
give
you're
us-
outspoken,
yes,
they'll give you the
yes.
tips.
And I never put his name because I didn't know who it was anyway. Afterwards, I came to know, but I kept
That
him
was a serious
anonymous.
story, no?
Very
I,
serious, yeah.
I forgot this story. This was in my mind
Yes,
when,
he had-
when I was to.
He lived with a bullet in his
He
head.
still
I think.
lives.
He still
He's not
lives.
dead.
He's not
He
dead.
still
Okay.
lives. I interviewed Dilkush in 2013
Okay.
at his house.
I think it was the same guys I chased all the way to Majali, the ones who escaped with the smuggled goods. That
Yeah.
they are the ones who shot him.
Shot him.
Yeah. That was it. Some stories
How
are
often do you write now? And
I've-
what gets you to write?
I've rarely written. I have some stories in mind, but such being the situation, my husband's not well. I haven't had a focus. Really, you need to really focus to write.
So what actually gets you to write a story?
When I have a story that's got an angle to it, like I really want to do something on it. I did a story on the casinos once, but I got someone from the inside to tell me how they abuse the system and how they overload the boats. That story got quite a lot of reactions, even from people who are in the casino business abroad. So it's that, suddenly you get somebody who gives you that extra information that you need to make the story really good. Then it's worth it. Otherwise, try getting any information from these casino guys. Impossible.
Impossible.
Suddenly someone gives you that.
But
tip off.
Devika, I think the bottom line is this: demand creates its own supply. If there is a demand for you to write, and if someone assures you that it's going to be used,
Yeah.
chances are that you will put in your best.
No.
And you produce more.
And
Yeah.
no, apart from that, you have to persist. You have to make millions of phone calls. You just have to persist with the story till somebody gives you a tip. That's
See,
another
news collection
thing.
is costly business. We have not found the answer to what funds it, how we fund it. But it is costly business. It takes time. Everyone says paid news. What's that paid journalism? I don't mean the advertisements kind of paid news. But they use it for journalists. Of course, all journalists are paid journalists because we have to eat. We have to eat at the end of the day. Question is whether you are getting paid honestly or dishonestly. That's all. But we have not found a model to subsidize. Like how Wire and a few others have tried.
Yeah. I don't know, the profession is getting very diffused, if you ask me. You don't know, I
Part of
really
the
don't
blame
know.
lies on social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
One. And second is this whole thing you were talking about, the corporatization of
No, blame in the
media
sense,
house.
it's evolution, no?
It is evolution
Obviously.
because now you're getting your news instant.
Yeah.
It's like instant coffee. You don't have to wait for your newspaper and you already have all the details. It just comes and comes and comes.
But the
It's
biggest
endless.
con that was played on journalism, according to me, was by Amazon and Google and all that. So they are offering you links to your paper. You think that they are getting you extra readers, but no. The reader is not going to your paper. That's enough of the news that he gets. And Google and Amazon are doing it without violating your copyright. How do you like that? How do you like that? And you are paying the news gathering cost. Understood? And if you put a paywall, then your readers are not, even less readers are going to come to you.
Come to you.
So you are caught in a catch-22.
Absolutely. Because I
Vijay.
found the same thing
These are
happening with the
like-
Hindu. They have a paywall for everything.
How was it working?
Editors
under
can't
this?
ask this question, I think.
Editors
Straight away rejected. Overrule it.
He was okay in the beginning, but then he started getting a bit narcissistic, and that Konkani agitation made him go bonkers. You know, he thought he was God running that Herald. Everything was me and myself, and yeah, I think he went off completely off this tangent. I don't think he was a good journalist, not at all. He was very duplicitous, dicey character. Because in the end, he was with Go and Observer. He was just just taking money for writing or not writing. My friend paid him a lot for keeping his story out. I know that.
No, I have a slightly different take on this, if I may interrupt you there. He was good at the beginning till a point, and according to me, that point came when he realized that the management was on the point of
Sacking him.
Of replacing him by a cheaper substitute within the paper. So that's point number one. The second thing, while it may look like a personal flaw, I think the political flaw with all of us is we've not found alternative ways to fund news gathering. And until we do that, then it look like Rico's corrupt, someone else is corrupt. But like, it's my struggle. I'm not justifying it. I'm not justifying anything here. Or maybe I am. but it is a wider malaise.
No, I know, but then
and
you can't.
Depending on advertising is the worst possible crime.
You can't take money and say that, how do you expect us to survive?
True.
I said, shut it down. Shut down your damn Go and Observer. If you're going to take money like this so brazenly, why do you call yourself a journalist? Yeah?
So it boils down to models of financing.
I know, Rico, but I don't think it's...
And we have not applied our mind enough to this. Just to
Why should journalists apply his mind to funding this thing?
No, don't say why should we.
Why should a journalist do
Why
that?
should
You
your
want
wife
a journalist to be the businessman?
Why should your wife cook and you eat every day at home?
I cook. Who said my wife only cook? I cook.
No, what I'm saying, see, there are cooperatives.
Agreed. That is one model.
So, yeah.
That is one model. But what I'm saying is, why should the journalist be the guy
Why not?
thinking of the financing
Why
models
not?
for a
You
media?
are talking of a different thing. I'm talking of a different thing. We were talking about Rajan Narayan, and he asked me, is he a good journalist? See, you don't take freebies and ask for the best room in the hotel. I know he did that, and his wife did that, and then say that you're putting out such great journalism, exposing the government. You can't have this dual kind of thing.
All that thing about love for Konkani and all the figures by A.C. Fernandez and all was a total myth.
It was a myth,
I
and
don't
it
believe
was
in that. It was just a business strategy that
You were part of it.
Yeah, I was part of it, but I was a dissenter throughout. I was not a willing part of it. I'll tell you that. And even the records are there. I convinced him to carry J.K. Wag's pro-Marathi piece. And then Rajan comes back to me and says, thank you, Rico, for telling me to put it. Because now we've got Datta Naik's 10-part reply to this. But that was not my intention. That was not my intention to pour fire on the
That Datta Naik. The cat eyes Datta Naik.
Sunita Temple building, yeah.
Yeah. Valmiki's father.
Yeah, Valmiki's father.
Yeah.
But my point is this, that till a few years back, we thought that the Indian media was above all the global trends and pressures and all. You all guys in the West are struggling. You all cannot make ends meet, but we guys are sitting pretty.
Arnab Goswami says that we are the future of journalism. Look at him. He says that.
We are the future of everything because
He
we are
says
the
we
most
are-
populous country in the
No,
world.
but that
You are the biggest
but
market.
that we have given up. Vijay, in the last few years, no one is talking that language.
No, we have crossed China.
Yeah,
We
No,
crossed China.
in newspapers,
No, not
in newspapers,
in
we are worse
anything.
off than where we
In
were before the
anything.
pandemic.
Why do you think the West is looking at India? Because of your bloody market.
Yeah, but
1.4 crore.
News we have not
And,
managed. News we have not managed. And I don't agree with you. Why should we worry about these things?
No,
We
why
should
should
worry
I
about it.
worry? I only worry about my salary at the end of the month and go home.
Yeah.
Why should I worry about Rahul's problems or bloody Timla's problems of financing my paper. I in fact get my salary on the first of the next month.
See, wire is an option that they have created, rightly or wrongly, with its problems and all that. I'm not saying it's great, but it is there.
It's one model,
Yeah.
It's one model.
So why not?
You mean say Goa, you will not succeed. Goa.
I think the podcast has a future. It hasn't yet been explored in Goa.
One
In
thing-
Goa, yes.
Gestation period is long for all these things, and you know it's not like regular.
Revenue is a bit of a problem there in Goa.
Hmm.
It will work in terms of attracting audience, but how do you earn your revenue is a big question.
Yeah, you have to
Big
give it
question.
out like a freebie because no one's going to pay for it
Exactly,
anyway.
that's the problem.
But at least it gets the story out.
The story,
Yeah,
getting
it's the
from the
story.
journalistic point of view, yes, podcast won't be the next thing in Goa,
Yeah, I
but
think it needs to be
the
explored.
revenue is the question. How will you survive?
Yeah.
How will
Maybe
you
talking about surviving, Devika, one question about surviving in a newspaper. See, as long as you're at our level, sub-editor, contributor, it's okay, I mean, no problem. Once you reach up there, you're on hot seat.
I don't see a future for any woman editor in Goa. There's always been this whole thing. I think it's really rubbish. But till today, there's no woman editor. First of all, editors are. I mean, my apologies to Vijay, but so far there've been people who are malleable, etc. That seems to be the
No, but
quality they look for.
Some amount of
They won't
malleability.
even come. It won't even strike them that they could get a woman editor.
Some
Now,
amount of
say Gauri. Why shouldn't Gauri be an editor at some point? That's my point to it. So women are there, they're there, but they cannot go any higher, which is ridiculous in these days and times.
No, I get the point you're making about
I mean, MI6 is getting a woman director. Can you believe it? It's such a big.
women, I accept that point. But
Yeah.
about malleability,
Yeah.
isn't some amount of malleability needed once you're at that level? Because at the end of the day, it's also a political.
Yes, it is. I suppose. I'm sure it happens everywhere.
Is it one of the regrets you have that you could not become the editor of any newspaper or magazine?
Yeah, I think it's not a regret in that sense because considering that I had a home life to attend to, it would have been an impossible kind of thing. But I beg your pardon? No, Herald Review. I insisted with Rahul that my name should come there at the bottom because I'm bringing it out. It's my team, etc. I don't see why Sujoy should get the. And then it caused a lot of friction. Sujoy wanted me to tell him which stories we were doing. I said, why the hell should I? So because we are compatible. He was getting very insecure, basically, nothing else. But it would have been tough because then you have to be in the paper, give your life to the newspaper, be there day and night and whatever. That kind of challenge. The higher you go,
the more hours you spend.
Yeah, that's a problem.
In Gitla Jain's time, everyone cites that example. The editors were dominating over the managements. Today the shoe is on the other foot and we all accept it.
Yeah.
We all accept it.
Yeah.
So in that sense, when we're talking about malleability and all that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a question now.
Yeah, I know. So long as they give you some freedom to do, I mean, some of the stories, I suppose. I know people make compromises.
Anyway, Rajan was good at it. Going back on
Short time.
Yeah.
No,
Rajan
but-
was good at what exactly?
No, if it comes to surviving or if it comes to standing on principle, there's 50-50, 0-100. Where would you be?
I mean, as an editor, you see.
Yeah, as an editor. Because that's where it matters. No, I'm saying correspondence and all, you won't even know if someone censors your copy, so it's okay. Where
Would you stand with the management against the management is what you're asking
Yeah.
me? I don't know.
See, because you have to live to fight another battle. That's
Yeah.
these guys always accuse me of being a fence sitter.
Yeah.
One of them here.
At what point? आता मागचं change झालं. आता मागचं change
No,
झालं.
what I'm saying is that there are different strategies for this. I know some of our colleagues who would say, if you cannot bring up your story, give it to someone else.
I did that once.
Yeah.
I did that once, and that guy went and took money from the.
Oh God.
It was one of the worst experiences because I couldn't use it. It was against the Salgaonkars, and he just went straight to Salgaonkars and he collected a huge amount from them for not bringing out his story. I mean,
My God.
that's how it works.
But on a lighter note, tell us the Benazir Bhutto story.
Benazir Bhutto. That some guy offered. That was this guy's father, no? He said, this Johar. Karan Johar's father. I was sent to interview him, and he said, I'm bringing out this movie. I could give you the role of Benazir Bhutto. I said, my goodness, I don't speak any Hindi. But then anyway, it's not something I'm interested in. So that was that.
You should have taken it with both hands.
Yeah, thank you.
Life would have been different. You would have been sitting.
Life would have been different if I took the Reuters offer. That was a good solid offer. Go to Hong Kong and learn the ropes there. But it would have been difficult.
I think Clarence Fernandez around did that too, Ola is gone.
He has to take his bus to Sharjah.
The road not taken. Clarence and all moved to Singapore actually. AFP or something. Reuters. Desk.
Okay.
Devika, how was your experience in the Goa today? You were there for a long time.
Yeah, I was there quite a long time. That was when I was having my kids and all that. It was good in parts. It was not bad, but it was also boring being stuck in a thing where you only brought it out once a month. So there's too much,
Happening in between which you
happening
can't do
which you
anything
can't do
about.
because it becomes. Somebody once said to me, Goa today or Goa yesterday? So it always stuck with me. It is true. So you could only do stories that were new, not report on something that had happened. It was like old stuff already. It had lost its date, passed by date or whatever it's called. So
The Village Boys was started by Manoj and you in that period.
Yeah.
Village Boys.
Yeah.
And there's a good team, Alistair and Joel.
Yes. No, good.
The Central Library is compiled on the
Goa today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost like
Both.
both.
Possibly more than a book.
Yeah.
Earlier it was like a souvenir, before.
I think that was another golden period of India also.
Yeah.
In that sense, where it was on a growth.
Let's close the day.
Yeah, let's close.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Devika.
Thanks everyone
for spending
for
this
coming.
time throwing light on your experiences with journalism.
Yeah. I hope it was worth it.
Thank you, Praveen and everybody for coming. Giving it a little bit of a non-journalist, giving the audience a little bit of a non-journalist shade.
Flavor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Ashley. It was indeed a very enlightening session.
I hope so.
And I think Devika made a very strong point here. Like when she first started her career, especially with Herald, and the question she encountered, chief reporter, a woman, I mean, it's and I think it still remains.
Yeah.
The question still remains, and very strongly it remains.
First of all, Rahul said, what is chief reporter? What is chief reporter?
And I remember, during our committee's first term, we had one workshop. Especially, it was to empower women journalists.
Yeah.
I will remember. And we had facilitated men as the first full-time working women journalist Goa has seen. Okay, and I think we are still falling short in empowering women journalists, and I think maybe Gooch can do something. Let's see. But
Yeah.
anyway, thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
It was
Let's make Gauri the torchbearer of that movement.
Why not?
Of that movement.
No, she's very much part of our Gooch
One
executive
other
committee.
thing,
Yeah.
I wanted to to say is that you should not underestimate the power of being a journalist. It's something I always say, that in the sense I'm talking of real journalism, you should not say sir and this, that too when you go to interview somebody. You say Mr. whatever it is. If you, Mr. Chief Minister, Mr. President, Mr. Never say sir. Why should you do that? I mean,
The Americans are showing us by standing up to Trump.
yeah, exactly. You should not.
In spite of all the insults.
I learned this from Devika.
They face.
Not to call people sir.
Yeah,
I
no,
learned
I'm sure.
in 95 when Devika rejoined Harriet as a deputy editor, that's when I learned this. All this while I used to call everybody sir.
Anyway, thank you once again.
Thank you.
And as a small memory of this session, we have printed these bookmarks and you can get it signed from.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It has more value when it's signed.
Actually, and where I read the quote on the bookmark, it says, can journalism survive artificial intelligence? Hard to say what the future holds, but only real journalism can sift fact from propaganda. Any social media platform and even individuals can put out zip news. Without journalists to provide context and analyze events, we'll be floating in a sea of information overload. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And finally, with just a small token of love and appreciation, we would like to present you a small memento. Actually,
Not the
please
flowers.
be on stage here. Okay, all please.